You wake up, and it begins, that quiet tension in your chest, that dull ache that whispers, you should be further by now. And no matter how much you've done, how hard you've tried, how far you've come, something inside still says, it's not enough. You feel like you're falling behind, but you don't even know who you're trying to catch. This is not just anxiety. This is not just comparison. This is a psychological illusion, one you inherited without even realizing it. You've been entered into a race you never consciously agreed to run. You're being measured by a clock you didn't set, judged by milestones you didn't choose. And I must tell you something hard, but freeing. You are not behind. You are not late. You are simply trapped inside a system that does not know your soul. When I studied the structure of the psyche, I realized that much of our suffering comes not from what we are, but from what we believe we should be. And these beliefs are rarely our own. They are inherited, passed down through culture, family, and society like invisible chains. We call this the collective unconscious, a realm deeper than thought, where inherited images, archetypes, and expectations live. You were told that by a certain age you must have achieved certain things. You were told that success looks like one path, and love looks like another, and happiness is something you earn when you've reached the destination. But these are not truths. They are masks. What I called the persona. The version of yourself you show the world to be accepted, to feel safe, to avoid rejection. But behind that mask lives your true self. And it is not interested in speed. It does not care how many followers you have, how much money you've made, or whether others approve. It only cares that you are becoming whole. And so every time you feel like you're falling behind, I invite you to ask, according to whom? Whose story are you living? Whose standards are you trying to meet? You see, the modern world teaches you to measure your life by external metrics, status, age, achievement. But the soul does not speak in numbers. It speaks in symbols, in longings, in the quiet ache that something isn't aligned. That ache you feel, that low hum of inadequacy, it's not proof that you've failed. It's proof that your spirit is still awake. It still remembers something deeper, a rhythm, a timeline that belongs only to you. The mistake is not that you're behind. The mistake is believing there's one path you must follow at one pace with one outcome. That is the myth. That is the lie passed down through generations. And it keeps you running not toward your destiny, but away from your truth. What would happen if you stopped? If you questioned the entire premise of the race? If you turned inward instead of looking sideways? This is the beginning of individuation, the process of becoming your true self. Not the self shaped by fear, approval, or comparison, but the one that emerges when you drop the mask and listen to your own voice. So the next time you feel behind, remember, you are not here to perform. You are not here to prove. You are here to remember who you are before the world told you what you must become. And that remembering, that sacred returning, cannot be rushed. It unfolds in its own time. And its only requirement is that you stop abandoning yourself for the illusion of someone else's finish line. Let us begin there, with the truth that you are not late, you are not lost, you are simply being called inward, called home, called back to the life that was always yours, underneath the noise. There is a hidden reason why everything you achieve still feels incomplete. You reach one goal, and before you can even breathe, another voice whispers, "Now what?" You get the job, the praise, the relationship, and yet something inside still feels hollow, disconnected, unfulfilled. Why? Because you are not chasing your soul's desire. You are chasing the world's projection of what should matter. Deep within you lives the shadow, a part of the psyche that contains all you've had to repress to survive. And often, what ends up in the shadow is not evil as people believe. It's everything that was unacceptable to the people around you. the truths you were not allowed to live, the dreams that were too big, too strange, too real, the feelings that were too intense, the gifts that didn't fit the mold. So you built a self that would be loved. You performed the version of you that earned approval. You became the golden child, the achiever, the strong one, the one who never needed help. And you succeeded, but only on the surface. Underneath, your shadow grew. Jungian psychology teaches that what you do not bring into consciousness will return as fate. That means every unlived truth within you will find a way to express itself through emptiness, burnout, addiction, anxiety, numbness. These are not random. They are symptoms, signals from the unconscious that you are living someone else's life. You believe your problem is discipline, productivity, motivation. But the real issue is that you're building a life around the wrong center. You're trying to satisfy the hunger of the false self, the persona, while starving the needs of the soul. And the shadow, though buried, never forgets. It remembers every time you said yes when you meant no, every time you smiled when you were breaking, every time you chased achievement when what you really craved was rest, art, love, expression, truth. The more you ignore the shadow, the more it sabotages. You become trapped in loops of striving, crashing, repeating, because nothing out there can ever satisfy what was exiled in here. The tragedy is not that you haven't done enough. The tragedy is that you've been doing it for the wrong reasons. You were taught that love must be earned, that worth must be proven, that your value depends on performance. So you run faster, push harder, numb deeper, all in the name of feeling enough. But what if the emptiness isn't a flaw in you? What if it's a message? The shadow speaks not to shame you, but to free you. It says, look where you've abandoned yourself. Look what you've forgotten. And only when you turn toward it, not away, can the healing begin. So pause. Ask yourself, who am I performing for? Who told me that joy must be postponed until I've accomplished more? Who taught me to see rest as weakness, truth as danger, and my own voice as too much? That story is not yours. That weight is not yours. It belongs to the culture, the family system, the survival strategies of generations past. And yet you carry it, you live by it, you suffer under its pressure. But today, here, in this moment, you have a choice: to keep running in a race you never agreed to, or to slow down, turn inward, and reclaim what was lost. Not through force, through facing. Because when you bring the shadow into the light, you don't destroy it, you integrate it. You become more whole, more real, more grounded. You stop living for appearances and start living for truth. And suddenly, the ache begins to ease. Not because you've done more, but because you've finally stopped abandoning the parts of you that were never broken to begin with. The shadow was never your enemy. It was the part of you that remembered what you forgot. And now, it's time to remember. Most people search for love in the outside world, but they do not realize they are searching for themselves. The one they long for is not another person. It is the forgotten part of their own soul. This is the secret of the anima and the animus. Within every man lives the anima, the inner feminine, and within every woman lives the animus, the inner masculine. These are not just ideas. They are powerful psychological forces that shape how we see, feel, and connect. When they are denied, rejected, or undeveloped, we go looking for them outside in others, and that's where the pain begins. A man disconnected from his anima will not seek a relationship. He will seek completion. He will chase the woman who embodies the softness, sensitivity, or emotional depth he has not integrated within himself. He will fall in love not with her, but with the missing part of his own psyche she seems to carry. A woman disconnected from her animus will not look for love. She will look for protection. She will attach to the man who represents the strength, direction, or purpose she has not yet claimed within herself. She will cling, submit, idolize, not from love, but from unconscious need. And this is why so many relationships begin with fire but end in smoke. Because what starts as fascination becomes projection. We believe the other will save us, complete us, carry what we do not want to hold. But no one can carry your soul for you. Jung called this process of falling into our own projections a sacred but dangerous stage. Sacred because it reveals what we've been missing. Dangerous because if we do not reclaim the projection, we lose ourselves to it. The anima and animus are invitations, not destinations. They are bridges to wholeness, not replacements for it. So what happens when a man avoids his anima? He becomes rigid, cold, disconnected from feeling. He over-identifies with strength and control. But inside, he is afraid of vulnerability, of surrender, of truly being seen. What happens when a woman avoids her animus? She becomes lost in emotion, ungrounded, indecisive. She may appear soft on the surface, but she carries an anger she doesn't understand, a resentment that grows from not being rooted in her own authority. This split creates suffering. We begin to resent the very people we once adored, not because they changed, but because the fantasy dissolved. We didn't love them. We loved the reflection of our missing piece. And here, we return to the path of individuation. Wholeness does not mean you have no need for others. It means your connection to others is no longer based on lack. When the anima is integrated, the man becomes whole, not less masculine, but more human. He feels deeply. He can sit with pain. He knows beauty, tenderness, and intuition not as threats, but as gifts. When the animus is integrated, the woman becomes whole, not less feminine, but more rooted. She knows her voice. She walks with clarity. She chooses love, not from fear or fantasy, but from power. And this is the paradox. The more we integrate these lost parts of ourselves, the more truly we can love another, not from need, but from truth. The great mistake of modern life is to think love will heal the self. But it is the self made whole that makes love real. So ask yourself, who have I chased that was really a mirror of my shadow? What traits in others evoke longing, envy, obsession? What does that reveal about what I've disowned within? Your anima or animus is not outside you. It is waiting within, ready to be met, not through romance, but through responsibility, through turning inward, facing what you fled, and welcoming what you once denied. And when you do, you no longer fall into relationships, you rise within them. This is the sacred work. This is how we stop repeating the same pain, by becoming the one we thought we had to find, by remembering, I am already complete. I only forgot. Every man carries a shadow, not just the one cast by his actions, but the deeper one, formed in silence, shaped by wounds he was never allowed to speak of. This is the part of the masculine psyche most misunderstood and most feared, not because it is evil, but because it is honest. You were taught to be strong, to endure, to suppress. You were shown that anger is dangerous, that sadness is weakness, that vulnerability is a threat to your manhood. And so, you hid those parts. You buried them beneath performance. You became who you thought you had to be, while losing who you truly are. But the psyche never forgets. What you repress does not disappear. It waits, it simmers, it erupts in moments of rage you don't understand, in addictions you can't control, in relationships you sabotage, or in the dead stare of a man who no longer feels alive. This is the masculine wound. Jung taught that the shadow is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It holds all the qualities you denied in order to be accepted, and until you face it, it will rule your life from the dark. You will live split, half of you in the light, the other half haunting your dreams, your choices, your silence. Men project their unintegrated shadow onto everything, onto women, work, rivals, even themselves. They judge in others what they can't accept in themselves. A man afraid of his sensitivity calls others soft. A man afraid of his anger becomes passive. A man disconnected from his worth seeks validation in conquest. This inner split is why so many men feel powerless, despite their achievements, despite their control. Because power is not dominance, it is wholeness, and there can be no wholeness without the shadow. To reclaim your masculine power, you must walk into that darkness. You must meet the grief you never voiced, the fear you masked with pride, the shame that dressed itself as ambition. There is no other path. You will resist it. You will want to run. Your ego will say, "I'm fine." But beneath that mask is a boy who was never allowed to feel, and a man who forgot how. Do not shame him. Do not reject him. He is not your weakness. He is your key. When you face the shadow, something shifts. You stop reacting. You stop blaming. You begin to see clearly what is yours to carry and what is not. You begin to act not from fear, but from clarity. This is not about becoming soft. It is about becoming real. The world does not need more men who perform strength. It needs men who are rooted in it. Men who know their rage but are not ruled by it. Men who can cry and not be broken by it. Men who can hold boundaries without needing control. Men who can lead, not because they crave power, but because they carry peace. This is what happens when the shadow is integrated. Not erased, but brought into consciousness. Not fixed, but seen. And suddenly, the weight you've carried begins to feel lighter. Not because life is easier, but because you are no longer at war with yourself. This is the power of inner work, of individuation, of facing the truth behind your silence. You do not become less of a man. You become more of a human. So if you feel the ache, the one that doesn't go away no matter how much you achieve, how many people admire you, how hard you work, listen to it. That's not failure. That's your soul asking to come home. And when you answer, when you choose to walk into the shadow, not to destroy it, but to understand it, you begin to recover something no one else can give you. Your center, your depth, your truth. And from that place, everything changes. Not because the world bends to you, but because you finally stop bending away from yourself. The world told you that to be a man is to lead, to conquer, to succeed. But it never told you how to rule yourself. It never gave you the tools to build an inner kingdom. One made not of dominance or noise, but of clarity, integrity, and purpose. And this is why so many men feel lost. Not because they lack ambition, but because they've built everything, except a home within themselves. You fought battles, earned respect, made sacrifices. But if you're still waking up with an ache in your chest, wondering why peace feels like a stranger, it means you've won everything except your own soul. In Jungian psychology, the king is not a title. It is an archetype. The mature masculine energy that leads not from ego, but from wisdom. He is grounded, not because life is easy, but because he knows who he is. To reclaim your inner king, you must dethrone everything false inside you. The false urgency to please, the false power in controlling others, the false identity built on applause. You must trade performance for presence. You must sit in silence long enough to remember what truly matters. Because the king does not need to move quickly. He moves deliberately. He doesn't need to prove himself. His mere presence speaks for him. But to embody this archetype, you must know your worth without the crown, without the job title, the woman, the approval. Can you look at yourself, stripped of all roles, and still say, "I am enough"? That is where kingship begins. It is not gifted. It is remembered. It lives beneath the fear, beneath the shadow, beneath the noise of a world that profits from your confusion. You reclaim it by choosing clarity over chaos, discipline over distraction, depth over decoration. You reclaim it by learning to say no, not out of bitterness, but because your peace is no longer for sale. You reclaim it by protecting what is sacred, your mind, your time, your purpose. And when you do, the world may not clap, you may not be celebrated, but something deeper happens. You become untouchable, not because nothing can hurt you, but because you no longer abandon yourself to be loved. This is the king's initiation. Not a throne outside, but a center within. Not a crown of gold, but a spine of truth. Not domination, but devotion to what matters, to what's real. So I ask you now, will you keep chasing what looks like power? Or will you return to what is power, the ability to face yourself fully and live from your truth? Because once you do, you don't need to be loud. You don't need to be seen. You simply are. And that presence, that calm, that quiet strength, it transforms rooms, relationships, generations. That is the psychology of kings. And now, if this message struck something deep inside you, don't let it fade. Leave a sign in the comments. Not for me, but for the others who are walking this path too. The ones who felt lost, silent, unseen, but are now ready to return to their throne. Subscribe if you're done pretending, if you're done chasing, if you're ready to remember. Because we are not here to impress the world, we are here to become whole. Let this be your moment. Let this be your return to center, to truth, to the king within.